Devil Venerable also wants to know. Chapter 9, General Star and the Army Crushing Star. Wenren he thought he really needed to have a conversation with Yin Hanjiang. Yin Hanjiang was the left protector of the first and foremost demonic sect. There was no need for him to be so timid that he had to wait until Wenren he was asleep to secretly sip some wine. When he first picked up this child, it was not his intention to make him a puppet. He flicked his fingers and the black robe that was discarded to the floor draped over Yin Hanjiang. Yin Hanjiang had just taken in the snow flame and was full of yang energy, so his wet clothes and hair had already dried. Yin Hanjiang stuck his arms through his robe, tied up his hair again, and got down on one knee before Wenren he, sword in hand, deferent and respectful. Wenren he slowly said, "Protector Yin, back when this Venerable One ordered you to become a sword cultivator, did you have any complaints?" Back then, after Wenren he brought that child home to his sect, he had his fortune and aptitudes looked into. Yin Hanjiang had a pure metal spiritual root and his birth had been influenced by Alkaid, the seventh star of the Big Dipper, also known as the Army Crushing Star, favoring offense and possessing great destructive power. In mortal armies, this was suited toward being the vanguard or the suicide unit. Wenren he's star was Polis, also known as the General Star, and was the most suitable pairing with Alkaid. With these kinds of aptitudes, Wenren he thought that Yin Hanjiang was suited to being a sword cultivator as well as his vanguard, so he handed him a sword and a manual he had stolen from some place. From then on, Yin Hanjiang became Wenren he's sword. Yin Hanjiang rarely heard Wenren he reveal his thoughts to him. He raised his head to look at Wenren he with his eyes shining like stars. "Venerable." He had something to say but hesitated. Wenren he knew Yin Hanjiang was stubborn and wouldn't speak what was actually on his mind unless he forced him to, so he said coldly, "Speak." After getting Wenren he's order, Yin Hanjiang spoke smoothly. "When this subordinate was 5 years old, foreign tribes attacked and slaughtered my entire village. This subordinate was fortunate and barely survived. Seeing someone pass by, I thought the worst that could happen was that I would die, so I mustered up the strength to grab that person's robes. That's how this subordinate met the Venerable One." He rarely spoke so many words, so Wenren he sat and listened earnestly. There is something that the Venerable One doesn't know. Yin Hanjiang patted the storage belt on his waist and an old rusty sword appeared on the ground before him. It was the one Wenren he had given to him then. When this subordinate was 18 and had reached foundation establishment stage, I took the sword that the Venerable One had given me and left to find the foreign warriors who slaughtered my village. That year. Wenren he thought back to something in a trance. The corner of Yin Hanjiang's lips curved slightly, as if in a smile. He stroked that old sword and said quietly, "This subordinate saw the Venerable One, wearing silver armor with a spear in hand, draped in a red cloak, leading a group of battered soldiers to face the invading forces. At that time, Wenren he had raised his broken spear and spoken to those ragged soldiers, 'We can flee, but do remember, behind us are the commoners living at the border. If the city wall falls, we can form a wall with our bodies, but if we flee, do you want the common people to use their bodies to protect us?' Wenren he did not use his cultivation. He had sealed his spiritual chi and alongside his comrades, fought off the enemy with the strength of a mortal man. After several days, they had successfully defended the borders and killed all the enemy tribesmen who had attacked the village that day. Yin Hanjiang was afraid that the Venerable One would notice him, so acted like an ordinary commoner and hid in the border town, waiting for Wenren he to return triumphantly with his troops. What was the path of slaughter? Yin Hanjiang watched those smiling soldiers return after their victory and began to understand. The path of slaughter could be to act as the blade that slaughtered the masses, or the sword that protected the people. Killing to stop death, fighting to stop war, that was Wenren he's cultivation path. Yin Hanjiang offered up the sword with both hands. While this subordinate was hiding and watching the Venerable One's return, there was only one wish in my heart, and that was to be the Venerable One's vanguard. He carefully held the sword in his lap, hand resting on the rust-stained steel, as if he was telling him with every action that Yin Hanjiang was willing to be Wenren-He's sword. Wenren-He didn't remember that something like that had happened 100 years ago. In order to improve his cultivation, he had to strengthen his mental state in the midst of countless battles. So in order to temper his mind, he would often seal his powers and joined battles in the mortal world, starting from a foot soldier and rising through the ranks all the way to a general leading forces into battle. When cold blades sliced across his face, when his comrades' blood splashed across his cheeks, life and death was the most clear-cut truth. The most difficult part of the path of slaughter was how to remain clear-headed in the midst of death, to not blame oneself for it and to not go mad from it. After innumerable battles, the 7-killing halberd was forged on the battlefield. Wenren-He thought that it would be an evil weapon that consumed souls but didn't expect that the weapon refined in the cruelest places in the world would give rise to a weapon made to protect. When Wenren-He entered this cultivation path, he had suffered immense trauma and wanted to gain power by taking lives, thinking to ascend to divinity by stepping on innumerable corpses and becoming a heartless demon. But in that battle that Yin Hanjiang had witnessed, the one where the 7-killing halberd had finally taken form, Wenren-He was forced to acknowledge one thing. Since his youth, he had never changed. The Supreme Elder of the Xiling Pavilion hadn't understood how Wenren-He could have power surpassing the Mahayana stage, sufficient to subdue a wandering immortal. She only knew how to hide from tribulations and seclude herself for 800 years, so how could she understand that the 7-killing halberd upheld not just the power of one demonic cultivator, but the wishes of the common people in the 300 years of war that Wenren-He had participated in? When the 7-killing halberd was forged, the general star shone, and the army-crushing star along with it. Wenren-He's moment of enlightenment was also the moment Yin Hanjiang had entered the Dao. So it was like that. Wenren-He beckoned with a finger, the vicious demonic sword that Yin Hanjiang wielded landed obediently in his palm. If gods existed, demons must exist as well. Wenren-He had obtained this demonic sword from the sea of blood in the underworld. It was a weapon that had collected the murderous energy of 100,000 evil spirits, its power surpassing the first-grade magic items of the cultivation world. Magic items were divided into the 3 levels: magic treasure, spiritual treasure, and magic artifact. Each levels was further divided into upper, middle, and lower grade. Also, above magic artifacts were the immortal artifacts, which didn't originate in the cultivation world. Only a few large sects had immortal artifacts and guarded them as the sect's treasure. Demonic artifacts were equivalent to immortal artifacts. When Yin Hanjiang fused with the demonic sword, he could unleash powers far beyond his own realm, but it was also harmful to his soul. At the time, Yin Hanjiang had begged Wenren-He to bestow the demonic sword on him, so that he could follow Wenren-He and be his left protector. By using his own body to feed the demonic sword, he gained power far beyond that of a body unity level cultivator. Yin Hanjiang had corpse chi in his body, which allowed him to fuse with the demonic sword, but it also caused him a lot of suffering. His soul constantly had to fight the demonic sword and he had only avoided being corrupted by it because of his dedication to Wenren-He. This sword doesn't suit this Venerable One's vanguard. Wenren-He tossed aside the demonic sword and lifted Yin Hanjiang out of his kneeling posture. This Venerable One will forge you a better one. It's because this subordinate is too weak, and has to rely on the demonic sword's power, Yin Hanjiang said. No need to worry, Wenren-He said. As this Venerable One's vanguard, you should naturally follow this Venerable One throughout every life. From the cultivation realm to the immortal realm or the demon realm or the divine realm, you must follow me no matter where I go, so how could you let this demonic sword impede your progress? The sword he would make for Yin Hanjiang could not in any way be inferior to the demonic sword. In order to forge a legendary weapon, the timing, the location, and human qualification, all needed to be right. For timing, the great sect war was approaching and the spiritual energy and fighting intent stirred by so many cultivators was a perfect opportunity. The place was also set, the flames underneath the 1,000-mile ice plains being the most suitable location to forge the sword. Also, Yin Hanjiang had awakened to the depths of the army-crushing star's meaning, and with the assistance of the 7-killing star, the human qualifications were also met. The only issue was the materials. Wenren he dug around in his kinkan sleeve. He had collected many treasures over the years, but none of them suited Yin Hanjiang, and they could only serve as supplemental materials. While he was rummaging, Wenren he saw the abusive love affair, "You are the only one that will remain in my heart" book. When his hand landed on the book's cover, he suddenly remembered that the book detailed many legendary treasures, the snow flame being only one of which. In the book, He Wenzhao had reached nascent soul stage after absorbing the snow flame, which was conveniently right at the beginning of the Great Sect War. Nascent soul and above cultivators were told to follow the sect elders and help set up an array, in order to serve as the main force of the war. The Great Sect War raged for 10 years, and He Wenzhao had just reached nascent soul, so his power was lower than his fellows. The bonded weapon he had refined at foundation establishment stage was broken, and his foundation was seriously damaged. By the end of the war, both sides had sustained heavy casualties. Many sect leaders and wandering immortals had fallen by Wenren He's hands, and Wenren He himself had hidden after suffering serious injuries and ended up being saved by Bailey Qingmiao. After treating Wenren He, Bailey Qingmiao heard that He Wenzhao's foundation had been damaged, and unless a suitable treasure was found to create a new bonded weapon for him, he would age and die within 5 years. Bailey Qingmiao couldn't stop crying as she saw her bedridden Shikshan with grave injuries. When she heard that there was a spiritual realm at the Golden Coast Cliffs, in which one could find elixirs or materials, she secretly ran off to look for something that could heal her Shikshan. On the way, she ran into Wenren He, who upon hearing that she was planning to face danger alone, he accompanied her on her journey. After facing innumerable dangers at the Golden Coast Cliffs, they finally found the spiritual realm, and within it, the shattered mountain meteorite. Bailey Qingmiao giddily took the treasure to He Wenzhao, not mentioning a word of how much danger she had gone through and only wishing to see her Shikshan recover. But while she had been searching for a year, He Wenzhao had been in numerous near-death crises. The elders of Shangqing sect sent his Shimei, Lu Xinyi, to him. Seeing that her Shikshan was undergoing a qi deviation, she forcibly dual cultivated with him despite herself being only at core formation stage, using her own true yin to save He Wenzhao's life. Due to that, she dropped from core formation to foundation establishment level. With Lu Xinyi's help, although He Wenzhao didn't manage to return to his original level, his life had at least been saved. With the treasure that Bailey Qingmiao had found, he went in seclusion for 3 years, refining the shattered mountain meteorite, and rose to deity transformation stage in one go. Bailey Qingmiao found out what had happened between He Wenzhao and Lu Xinyi during that period and cried daily for 3 years. However, whenever she saw a sickly-looking Lu Xinyi practicing with a group of rookie disciples, she couldn't help but feel bad. Lu Xinyi's qualifications were a bit inferior to Bailey Qingmiao, but she was also a proud daughter of heaven who was treated like a star within the sect. But now that she had fallen to foundation establishment stage, and that many disciples accused her of taking advantage of He Wenzhao and ostracized her, there was no way for Bailey Qingmiao to take up an issue with her. She just had to grit her teeth and bear it. After He Wenzhao exited seclusion, he wanted to find an elixir for Lu Xinyi to restore her cultivation. Bailey Qingmiao had been holding back her anger for 3 years and had a huge fight with He Wenzhao, demanding to know whether he had feelings for Lu Xinyi. He Wenzhao grabbed Bailey Qingmiao's shoulder and said soothingly, "Bailey Shimei, you saw how injured I was at that time. Lu Shimei acted on her own accord. I didn't even know what had happened. Qingmiao, let me tell you, ever since we were children, the only one for me has been you. But I owe a debt to Lu Shimei, and I won't be able to live comfortably for the rest of this life if I don't repay it. It would also become a heart demon in my future tribulations. Shimei, please understand this once, I have to help her. And Lu Shimei is in such a bad situation." Don't you feel sympathy for her? Bailey Qingmiao pointed to her chest and said tearfully, Shikshan, you only see how Lu Shimei damaged her foundation for your sake, but what about me? All those times I risked my life at the Golden Coast Cliffs? Just because Shikshan didn't see those, do they not exist to you? Of course not. He Wenzhou grabbed Bailey Qingmiao. Shimei, you and I swore to live and die together. The pain on your body is a pain in my heart. He Wenzhou did all he could to coax Bailey Qingmiao, either catching fireflies with her in the mountains and releasing them to light up the night sky, or using deity transformation stage power to bring her above the clouds, sitting with her and speaking sweet words. Eventually, Bailey Qingmiao's temper faded and she even accompanied He Wenzhou to find a cure for Lu Xinyi. She thought that after she found a cure, Shikshan would have no more obligation to Lu Xinyi, but in the end, it was Lu Xinyi who hurt her the most cruelly, showing no gratitude for everything that Bailey Qingmiao had done for her. What was also worth mentioning was that Lu Xinyi was the maiden who got refined into an everlasting lamp by Yin Hanjiang. In the end, she paid her debt to Bailey Qingmiao with her life. Everything one gets in life is predetermined. Wenren he thought back to this plotline, but he had no interest in Bailey Qingmiao and He Wenzhou's abusive relationship that dragged on for several hundred years. The thing he paid attention about was the shattered mountain meteorite. He Wenzhou had refined it into a fan, so he could look fittingly cool for a male lead. He Wenzhou's lightning root and Yin Hanjiang's metal root were both associated with metal in the 5 elements, so a material suitable for He Wenzhou should be suitable for Yin Hanjiang as well. Wenren he wouldn't steal a treasure which was destined to belong to someone else, like the snow flame, which he traded for with Bailey Qingmiao. But the shattered mountain meteorite was originally obtained by Wenren he for Bailey Qingmiao. The devil Venerable had full rights to decide what to do with something that originally belonged to him. And why should this devil Venerable give something of his to He Wenzhou? Wenren he had a karmic relation with Bailey Qingmiao, but he had no connection to He Wenzhou. He Wenzhou could die for all he cared, and he certainly wouldn't use something that belonged to him to save He Wenzhou. Thinking like this, Wenren he beckoned to Yin Hanjiang. Come here. Yin Hanjiang hesitantly approached and sat at Wenren he's side. Wenren he said, there is a spiritual realm at the Golden Coast Cliffs, in which is hidden the shattered mountain meteorite. In 10 years, the door to the realm will open, and this Venerable One will retrieve the meteorite for you, to create a legendary weapon. Yin Hanjiang didn't refuse this time. The Venerable One didn't permit him to refuse. Wenren he was pleased with his obedience and said, the shattered mountain meteorite is destined for this Venerable One, so I must be there to obtain it. But this Venerable One is destined to face a bloody trial in the Great Sect War. Yin Hanjiang's face turned gloomy upon hearing this. The demonic sword sensed his mood and returned to his hand with a swish. Don't worry, Wenren he consoled, I'm not fated to die. Cultivate well, and at the time, if I go missing, come to this location to find me. He indicated to Yin Hanjiang the place he had washed up in the book. This time, he wouldn't need Bailey Qingmiao to save him. He was entrusting his safety to Yin Hanjiang's hands. In abusive love affair, Yin Hanjiang had probably searched tirelessly for Wenren he, but was constantly have to deal with attacks from disciples of the righteous sects. By the time he found Wenren he, it was already after Wenren he had gone to the Golden Coast Cliffs and gotten the meteorite. The books Wenren he had been heavily injured and knew well he wouldn't be able to maintain his hold on the ambitious members of Xianyuan sect, so he didn't contact his subordinates even when he could. Back then, he didn't even trust Yin Hanjiang. But now, after reading the book, Wenren he knew that Yin Hanjiang would never betray him. After knowing Wenren he would face disaster, Yin Hanjiang became very anxious and trained at Xianyuan sect every day in the hope that he could break through to Void Boundary stage before the Great Sect War. Every bit of increase to his power was a little more help he could be to his lord. Wenren he had no fear despite knowing his fate. After receiving information from Shu Yanyan, he ordered the 4 hall masters to prepare for the battle. It had already been 6 months since their meeting in that small town. With Bailey Qingmiao gone, He Wenzhou constantly used going down the mountain to patrol or slay monsters as an excuse to meet with Xu Yanyan. Though he didn't have the snow flame this time, by dual cultivating with Xu Yanyan, he had reached Nascent Soul just as in the original plotline. After reaching Nascent Soul, he could have access to more of the sect's resources. The sect master and many elders also viewed He Wenzhou favorably, even telling him some pieces of information that only the sect master could know. After He Wenzhou had gotten such obvious benefits, he favored Xu Yanyan even more, buying a house for her in the small town where they spent time together like husband and wife, a far cry from their enmity in the book. In the book, Xu Yanyan had been killed by He Wenzhou. She was effectively a huge obstacle that He Wenzhou had run into early in his cultivation and which had caused him a significant amount of suffering. He Wenzhou despised her, and later when he had gained enough power, he killed her the first chance he got. Xu Yanyan was skilled at ferreting out information and found out many of the righteous sect's plans from He Wenzhou, all while feigning ignorance. She secretly sent this information to Wenren He while also asking, "Venerable One, when can I ditch He Wenzhou to go be with my subordinates? It's been 6 months. I've touched just one man for 6 months. Do you know what it's like to eat only one dish for 6 months? It's awful. Wenren He, this venerable practices inedia and doesn't eat. Xu Yanyan, then just absorbing spiritual energy from one area for 6 months. Wenren He, when you cultivate in seclusion, can you be unsatisfied with the spiritual energy you're absorbing and move to cultivate somewhere else? Xu Yanyan. She didn't have high hopes for her cold-hearted master's understanding, and just secretly wished for the fighting to start sooner. It would be best if He Wenzhou died in the Great War. Meanwhile, Bailey Qingmiao finally returned to the sect and reported her advancement to her master. She became the youngest to achieve core formation in the whole of the sect's recorded history, shocking the entire Shangqing sect. End chapter. Devil Venerable also wants to know. Chapter 10, The path of cultivation is devoid of emotion. Before Bailey Qingmiao, the fastest to achieve core formation in Shangqing sect had been He Wenzhou, who after reaching foundation establishment at 18, formed a golden core in mere 3 years. Cultivation was the way of stealing from heaven and became more difficult the further one advanced. Qi gathering and Qi refinement were simple enough and people of Wulin with good aptitudes could accomplish them. However, foundation establishment was the threshold to the cultivation world. This threshold eliminated countless people. Countless people who yearned to enter the cultivation path were stopped in front of this threshold, never to advance a single step further. And even if one advanced to foundation establishment stage, would one be able to reach immortality? Probably not. There were many people who was stalled at the foundation establishment stage for 50 or 100 years, unable to form a golden core until their spiritual energy ran out and their lifespans were exhausted. Qi gathering was absorbing the energy of the universe into one's body, Qi refinement was refining it for one's own use, and foundation establishment was using the Qi of the universe to force out acquired impurities in the human body to gain a primordial body. The golden core was formed out of spiritual Qi within the Danshan. For the first time, one's spiritual awareness could see within one's own body. It was then when the Danshan was emerging that the body would form its own contained cosmos, and this would be one's first step toward transforming the human body into that of an immortal. He Wenzhou taking 3 years only was already exceptional, but as for Bailey Qingmiao, she had established her foundation when she just turned 18, and before the year was out, before her Shifu even had time to teach the core formation methods to her, she had inexplicably formed a golden core already. Elder Qingyu checked Bailey Qingmiao over at the administration hall and confirmed that her qi was pure and orderly and she had cultivated perfectly by Shangqing sect's methods, somehow comprehending the core formation methods by her own ability. This kind of gift was unprecedented in Shangqing sect. Elder Qingyu nodded with approval and smiled slightly. After offering incense to the sect founder, he rang the sect's moon pool bell. The moon pool bell was one of Shang-Qing sect's 3 great immortal artifacts, supporting the wards around their mountain for years. If it was rung, anyone in the sect could hear it unless they were on the brink of death. Ordinarily, forming a golden core wouldn't be worth the administration hall elder announcing it to the entire sect. Even He Wenzeo's 3 years hadn't been worth such treatment. However, Bailey King Miao's situation was truly unique, and after deep consideration, Elder Qingyu decided to ring the bell. When it sounded, He Wenzeo, who was in bed with Xu Yanyan, also heard it. After 3 rings, Elder Qingyu's voice was transmitted to each person's ears. Bailey Qing Miao of Lingyuan Peak under Elder Qing Rong, has formed her golden core in just 1 year. He Wenzeo froze, dumbfounded. Xu Yanyan also heard the ringing of the bell, but she wasn't a disciple of Shang-Qing sect and couldn't hear Elder Qingyu's transmitted message. She acted as if she hadn't noticed anything and wrapped her arms around He Wenzeo's neck, saying, "Dear He, don't bully this concubine, hurry." Impeccable acting skills, worthy of being the Xianyuan sect's right protector. But He Wenzeo was no longer in the mood. He hurriedly got up and used a purification spell to rid his body of any smell. Xu Yanyan turned over, her eyes hazy. "My dear," He Wenzeo said coldly, "I just remembered that I have some important business to attend to. I need to return to the sect. I may not be able to visit you for the next few days. Be good and wait for me." Then he turned around and left. Xu Yanyan sprawled over the bed, propping her chin on her elbow. "Once they have their clothes on, they'll act like they don't know you. No good swine, Pa." "Bailey Qing Miao has returned to the sect," a voice came from the window. Xu Yanyan was startled, and when she looked over, she found that Wenren He and Yin Hanjiang had entered through the window at some point. "Oh, it's the Venerable One, you nearly scared this subordinate to death. I thought that my cultivation had dropped and my awareness had gotten so bad that I didn't even notice intruders coming in." Xu Yanyan had no clothes and no blanket covering her body, looking unruffled at the two. Wenren He and Yin Hanjiang acted like they were blind to Xu Yanyan's undressed state. Yin Hanjiang used a spell to clean a desk and chair inside the room, opened a window and cleared the smell out of the air with a wind charm. Only afterwards did he invite the Venerable One to sit down. "Xu Yanyan." She grimaced and waved a hand, having the clothes on the floor put themselves on her body. She respectfully greeted Wenren He, then she glanced at Yin Hanjiang and her face stiffened. "Protector Yin, you're already at the top level of body unity." Xu Yanyan felt alarm in her heart. She and Yin Hanjiang were both the Devil Venerable's protectors, but the left protector had been favored by the Venerable One from the beginning. Before, Xu Yanyan would console herself that Yin Hanjiang was only at body unity stage, and though the demonic sword was powerful, using it harmed his body and soul and could not be sustained for too long or he would be corrupted by it. If they really went at it, she had the upper hand. But in a mere 6 months, Yin Hanjiang had managed to rise from the first level of body unity to the 9th. Wasn't he about to break through to void boundary stage any day now? The right protector felt quite threatened. However, the Venerable One shook his head, seeming displeased. Only the 9th level of body unity. There's still far to go. This wasn't right. Xu Yanyan felt like she'd caught a whiff of something odd. She looked back and forth between Wenren He and Yin Hanjiang several times. Yin Hanjiang was still the same, silently loyal as always, and the Venerable One was as cold and overbearing as he always was, and nothing about their interaction had changed. The only thing was, Xu Yanyan squinted and found that Protector Yin was standing a bit closer behind the Venerable One than before, and with Yin Hanjiang protecting his back, Wenren He's posture was also slightly more relaxed. It was just slightly, but it gave off a completely different feeling. Alarm bells sounded in her mind and she hurried to report. "Venerable One, for this past half year, this subordinate has offered herself to He Wenzeo, helping him reach nascent soul stage, giving him the chance to participate in important matters of his sect. I have found out the location where the nascent soul disciples will be setting up their array. The 5 great forces of Shangqing sect, Tianjian sect, Juxing sect, Biluo sect, and Wuxiang temple, as well as several smaller sects, will be sending out their nascent soul disciples to form a giant array north and south of Xianyuan sect in order to temporarily sever the spiritual veins, so that we won't have access to natural spiritual energy as we fight. Xu Yanyan reported everything she had done over the past months and all the information she had gotten, trying to be with Protector Yin. She needed to show him that just kissing up to the Venerable One wasn't enough, as she had made some real achievements. Abusive love affair, you are the only one that will remain in my heart, had described the great sect war from Bailey King Miao's point of view. She was just a core formation disciple and didn't get to know much. For 10 years, the book basically narrated how she was missing her Shikshan, worrying for him and being concerned for him, all while she saved people here and there, showing off her kind nature as the female lead. Thus, Wenren he hadn't known exactly what plans the righteous sects were making. With Xu Yanyan's information, their schemes were starting to come into shape. This subordinate believes that we should send 2 able fighters to the locations ahead of time and have them take the best positions to break the array, and subsequently exterminate all those nascent soul disciples. Xu Yanyan looked up and the seductive warmth in her eyes had vanished, only leaving ruthlessness. In her white robe, she seemed like a blooming spider lily, softly beckoning, leading the lost to the next shore. Cold-hearted and merciless, willing to use any means toward a goal, this was the true nature of the right protector of Xianyuan sect, Xu Yanyan. As she spoke, the star of DeVe appeared in the night sky, giving off a dazzling radiance. *******. The leader of Shangqing sect was currently with the leaders of several other major sects, observing the star signs to predict the ways of the heavens. The Juxing sect leader looked at the night sky, his expression grave. Polis, Alcade, and DeVe are all shining, resonating with each other. It is an ill omen. How could this be, said the leader of Biluo Valley. Several months ago, we made our calculations that DeVe would vanish, being subdued by lightning. Alcade had demonic signs, showing the color of blood and the possibility of self-destruction would be high, while Polis had signs of peach blossoms and would meet with a tribulation of love. The 3 stars all had signs of decline. It was a perfect opportunity for the righteous sects to wipe out the demonic sect. How did fortune suddenly take such a turn? The Tianjian sect leader glared at the sky. 6 months ago, Polis's love tribulation vanished, his protector Alcade shook off demonic temptation, and DeVe brightened. Everything suddenly changed, and the source is Polis. The Shangqing sect leader said, Polis represents Xianyuan sect's Wenren he. This man took the world by storm 100 years ago, with a demonic sword wielder behind him, and unified the demonic sects in just a few decades. The balance of power shifted and the righteous sects have been gradually weakening. If we do not eliminate Wenren he, that man will suppress the righteous sects for 1,000 years. We had originally planned for Shangqing sect alone to deal with him, but it seems now that will not be enough, said the master of Biluo Valley. We must send more high-level experts and immortal artifacts to surround and eliminate Wenren he. The Juxing sect master said, the will of heaven is hard to fathom. My sect reads the signs earnestly, trying to glean heavenly mysteries, and are rarely mistaken. Why is it that in this past half-year, destinies have changed so quickly? Do the heavens not wish for us to see the outcome of the Great War? The abbot of Wuxiang Temple, while reciting a Buddhist scripture, set down the rosary in his hand and a monk's staff appeared in his palm. He opened his eyes and all shades of compassion faded from them, replaced with furious light. He resembled the ferocious law protectors placed before statues of the Buddha. Will the abbot act personally? The Shangqing sect master was filled with glee. With you there, we can do twice the work in half the time, and victory will be within our grasp. During the great sect leaders' secret meeting, they set down the time of attack and one by one returned to their own sects. The Shangqing sect master left the secret room, arriving at the administration hall and asking Elder Qingyu, Bailey Qingmiao has risen to core formation stage. Elder Qingyu explained everything to him, and the sect master smiled with gratification. With Qingmiao and Wenzhou, the Shang-Qing sect has promising successors. We can freely focus on this war. Qingyu Shidi, stay at the sect to protect the Moon Pool Bell and maintain the Shang-Qing sect's strength. Qingyu knew this battle was unavoidable. He said, but these two children are currently squabbling with each other. Is Bailey Qingmiao throwing another tantrum? The sect master chuckled. Young girls can be moody. After she reaches nascent soul, she won't be like this anymore. Qingyu and the sect master didn't take the fight between these two very seriously, but Wenzhou was doing everything he could to win over Bailey Qingmiao. The reason was that when Bailey Qingmiao returned, she immediately went to the administration hall to check her Shixin's patrol records. This was her first time being away from her Shixin for so long, and she had just personally witnessed a clash between a wandering immortal and a Mahayana-level expert in the ice plains. Feeling lucky to be alive, she naturally missed her Shixin and wanted to know what he had been doing while she wasn't around. The administration hall's records were publicly available. Bailey Qingmiao was at first happy for her Shixin for reaching nascent soul, but she felt something was off the more she looked. Wenzhou was heading down the mountain once every 2 days or so. That was way too often. Bailey Qingmiao used to be just about joined at the hip with Wenzhou, and she would follow nearly every time he left the mountain, so she knew well that he left about once a month. Just at that moment, Yao Venden happened to come to the administration hall to retrieve materials for the medical pavilion and found Bailey Qingmiao spacing out in front of the Jade Slip records, so he went over to congratulate her for reaching core formation. Yao Shixin, Bailey Qingmiao said, have you seen He Shixin? I saw the task rotations and he's supposed to patrol the mountain today, so why isn't he around? He probably left. He's been heading down the mountain all the time lately and even bought a house for Miss Shu, probably out of guilt. Yao Venden was a straightforward person and blurted this out without thinking. He immediately regretted it and slapped himself on the cheek. The jade slip in Bailey Qingmiao's hand clattered to the floor. What did you say? Shixin bought a house for Miss Shu. Wenzhou got back in that moment, just in time to hear Bailey Qingmiao's tearful words, and his vision went dark for a moment. He grabbed Bailey Qingmiao and said soulfully, Shimei, you've finally returned. I've been so worried about you these past days. I've missed you so much. Yao Venden knew that he had misspoken and ran off with his head down, leaving Wenzhou and Bailey Qingmiao to figure things out themselves. After Bailey Qingmiao interrogated Wenzhou, she charged down the mountain to find Xu Yanyan and question her on her relationship to him, with Wenzhou following close behind her. After she left the mountain's wards, Xu Yanyan's group could detect her movements. Venerable One, what should this subordinate do? Xu Yanyan asked. Don't reveal your identity before the Great Sect War. Everything else is up to you, Wenren, he said. Great. Xu Yanyan said with a clap. I've had enough. I want to get out of here and go back to my cute subordinates, boo-hoo. She really did tear up. Ever since she had started cultivating, she had never been with one man for this long. She had already gotten enough of the lightning spiritual root and that mysterious power, and had risen to the 9th level of void boundary. She'd long since gotten sick of Wenzhou too, and wouldn't have forced herself to endure this much if it weren't for the sake of getting information. Wenren he shared a glance with Yin Hanjiang, then left the room and cast a monitoring spell in the adjoining one, to see how the events would unfold. Wenren he was curious what kind of choice Bailey Qingmiao would make this time, after knowing Wenzhou's actions. The other room in Xu Yanyan's house was a servant's room, but since she didn't have any, it stayed empty with only one small bed placed in it. After Wenren he sat down on it, Yin Hanjiang couldn't stand behind his back anymore, so stood at his side. Wenren he tugged him down. Sit down. Seemingly overwhelmed, Yin Hanjiang sat shoulder to shoulder with the Venerable One on that small bed with his throat bobbing slightly, his eyes downcast. He didn't dare to look at their shoulders, which were barely half an inch apart. They waited for a while, but He Wenzhou and Bailey Qingmiao still hadn't arrived, probably arguing with each other on the way. Wenren he sensed Yin Hanjiang by his side open his lips slightly, as if he wanted to say something, thus he told him, "Just say it." Yin Hanjiang, hearing an order from the Venerable One, no longer dared to hide it, and after some hesitation, he spoke, "The Venerable One's path of slaughter is for the purpose of preventing deaths and protecting the living beings, so why start the great sect war and bring chaos to the common people?" He wasn't any sort of good person and hadn't minded earlier when Shu Yanyan had spoken of exterminating all those righteous sect disciples. No matter what the Venerable One wanted him to do, he had no objections. But there was a hint of confusion within his heart, and he didn't understand why the Venerable One was doing this. If he already knew about the great sect war, couldn't he avoid it? This didn't seem like the Venerable One's Dao. Ordinarily Yin Hanjiang would never take the initiative to speak up, but now that the Venerable One had asked him first, and his position was also slightly different from before. Alcade should not question Polis, so Yin Hanjiang decided to confide in the Venerable One, and allow him to clear his doubts. Wenren he answered his question with another question, "Protector Yin, what do you think cultivators are?" Yin Hanjiang thought for a moment. The elite. He had never considered this type of question before. He just knew that ordinary people would call cultivators esteemed immortal, and cultivators would also think of themselves highly, separating the cultivation world from the secular world, when they clearly both existed in the mortal realm. "Wrong," Wenren he said emotionlessly. "You, myself, and the thousands of other cultivators, whether righteous or demonic, are all a pack of petty thieves who steal opportunities from other lives?" Yin Hanjiang never realized that Wenren he had this view about cultivators. "Look at the location of Shangqing sect," Wenren he said as he pointed to the distant mountains. "How many living beings could be nurtured by that mountain's abundance in spiritual energy and protected for millennia from natural disasters? If human beings built a city in this area, many millions of people could be born in it in 1,000 years, but Shangqing sect has less than 100 core formation and above disciples. The great Dao is devoid of emotion," Yin Hanjiang said. "The lives and deaths of mortals are nothing to it." He pressed his lips together, thinking back to his slaughtered village. He had spoken of his thoughts toward the heavenly Dao for the first time. That's true, but the laws of heaven will not allow cultivators to steal opportunities granted by heaven. If cultivators had no internal strife and everyone focused on cultivating in seclusion without disrupting one another, then after several thousand years, all the spiritual energy in the world would be completely consumed and not a blade of grass would be able to grow. There would be no more life in this world, Wenren he said. The purpose of the great sect war was not for the righteous sects to slay the demonic sects, or for the demonic sects to slaughter the righteous sects, but it was that both sides had found through analyzing signs that another heavenly calamity was imminent, and if they didn't relieve the pressure through infighting, many more cultivators would die in heaven's judgment, until the world had no more cultivators and no more human beings. Stealing from heaven, deceiving heaven, robbing heaven, that was the true nature of cultivators. So, this was their way of maintaining balance with the laws of heaven, seeking a way of survival. Whether or not this Venerable One dies in this battle, my spiritual energy would still belong to this world. If I died and all my cultivation was lost, the place where I was buried would nurture countless lives in 100 years, Wenren he said. He looked calm and indifferent, unconcerned about his own life or death. Yin Hanjiang felt a pang of pain in his heart, however, as he clutched the demon sword. This subordinate will not let the Venerable One die. This Venerable One knows. In the book, Yin Hanjiang had proven his loyalty to Wenren he with his life. Wenren he patted the back of his hand and his voice held a rare warm tone. If this Venerable One is gone, you can follow me. Don't be like in the book and live half a life because of an order from this devil Venerable. Upon hearing these words from Wenren Yin Hanjiang unintentionally showed a look of relief and said solemnly, "Thank you, Venerable One." End chapter.